Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Having already disposed of the CEO of NatWest, Nigel Farage turned his ire against the chairman of Coutts. And the CEO of Coutts has gone. That's two massive heads he's scalped. And more to come, we hope. It's starting to be seen that banks are no longer as powerful as they thought they were. When one man can bring down the heads of two banks, think how many we can bring down if we all band together and say we're having enough of your shit and you can stop doing what you are doing. Ultimately, of course, we have the power. It's our money. We can take it out. We can choose a bank and say, right, we are going to end NatWest. We can pull all our money out of NatWest and we can finish NatWest overnight. They'll be gone. Because these arrogant, conceited, power-hungry people at the very top of these banks sit there and play God with us. When they are releasing information to news agencies about client accounts, quite clearly illegally. Now, this one that went from NatWest, she was fired effectively. She was allowed the dignity of resigning, but she was fired. But Farage is going after her because of the GDPR rules, and he's after her, and he wants compensation. Plus, the Ombudsman is now looking at it, and they are going to sue them for the same rules. And they could face a £17 million fine. And I'd love to see it. And I also want to see Coutts as well. Now, the chairman there has gone. Let's hope Farage goes after him, and let's hope the Ombudsman goes after that and takes them for another 17 million or whatever. It makes the other banks sit and watch this and think, maybe not. Let's have a look at this story. Here goes. Now, of course, there is a wider story at play with the banks at the moment, and I will go into it later in this video. But we'll just have a look at this first. So, Farage brings down second bank boss. Coutts CEO resigns in wake of the debanking scandal. They basically lied, and then they found the papers from Coutts. And it was like a big document, and they're all going on, and it was just filled with lies, with innuendo, with all sorts of things in there that wasn't true about Farage. He's now going to be suing them. So the CEO of Coutts, the exclusive bank that terminated Nigel Farage's accounts for political reasons, has said he bears the ultimate responsibility and is consequently resigning. The second top banking figure to go over the Farage scandal in as many days. The consequences for the politicisation of banking, manifesting itself as the debanking of a Brexit leader, Nigel Farage, for his views, friendship and Twitter usage, continue, with the second bank CEO resigning in 2 days. Peter Flavell, the now former boss of Coutts, the prestigious banks which terminated Farage's business and personal accounts, and which is part of the NatWest Group, said that while he was exceptionally proud of his leadership of Coutts, nevertheless, we have fallen below the bank's high standards of personal service, and that, as CEO of Coutts, it is right that I bear ultimate responsibility for this, which is why I'm standing down. And I hope that he is standing back up again, but this time in a court of law, while he's getting sued. The move, which may be part of a damage limitation and clearing out exercise by the interim CEO of NatWest Group, Paul Thwaite, who was appointed yesterday after Dame Alison Rose fell on her sword over the same debanking scandal. The Guardian reports Thwaite said, I have agreed with Peter Flavell that he will step down as Coutts CEO. I believe this is the right decision for Coutts and the wider group. It is. And also, they need to be completely open, honest, and release everything that they said was wrong with Nigel Farage and apologise in public for it. They've got to show themselves for what they are. Manipulative bastards. But of course, the banks are politicised. There's no way that they're not. And it was under this Tory government that the banks previously, when they foreclosed on a loan, they would take the house up and they would immediately hand the house over and sell it. They had to by law. They were not allowed to own property that they had foreclosed upon. So they foreclose and then they immediately sell it. That's how they do it. The law was changed to enable banks to retain the property that they foreclose on, and then they can rent it out and then they earn money from that rental. And so banks will eventually become the biggest landlord in the world. This is clearly wrong, but this was done for political reasons. In the same way as rising interest rates, they look for an excuse to raise the interest rates so that people have to pay more in interest. That's money that goes to the banks. And ultimately, all the banks get all the money. You're taking money from people and giving it to banks. You're taking homes from people and the banks are owning them. And this is the way that they build up all the assets and all the money out of an economy and give it to the banks. And the banks all own all the homes. Then the government controls the banks. So ultimately, you have a one world government, the WEF, owning all the money and owning all the homes. And you will have to rent them. And therefore, you are beholden to them. And if you say or think things that they don't want you to say or think, if you express views that they don't like, they debank you and they dehome you. This is the direction of travel, and it must be rejected. Banks must once again be forced to immediately sell homes they foreclose on. And also, interest rates rises that come from the Bank of England must not be held by the banks with the loans. The banks must pass over all that money, the excess money, to the Bank of England, which is then redistributed in the form of lowering taxes for normal people or increasing various other things. The banks must not grow fat on us. But the worst of it, of course, is the ongoing push that the government seem to have. They want to push to a cashless society. And that, again, puts more power into the hands of the banks. Because if you lived on purely on cash, you could live without ever seeing a bank. And that £50 note is a £50 note is a £50 note. If you have £50 and you buy something, the bank take their little percentage. And then that person doesn't quite get £50 because the banks have taken their little percentage. But he buys something and the banks take it. And eventually, over time, that £50 all belongs to the bank. All the money evaporates to the bank. Whereas if you've got cash, it's cash, it's cash, it's cash. It's the same value all the way around. The banks don't get their cut when you spend cash. That's number one. Number two, of course, is if it was all electric money. Nothing real, no cash. If you do or say anything that they don't like, you haven't got cash. You haven't got access to cash. You've got social credit. If you say the wrong thing on Facebook and they're monitoring, oh, they don't like that, we're locking you out of your cash account. You can't spend money for 3 days. That's what they can do. If you've got cash and a cash society, you can tell the banks to go fuck themselves. And they don't like that. And that is why the banks are pushing for a cashless society, as well as governments pushing for a cashless society. And they're saying it'll be easier and more convenient. If they're trying to tell you it's for your benefit, you know it really isn't. So we need to fight against that. But anyway, we'll carry on with this now. Farage has previously called on both to resign, and they have, citing their involvement in his debanking, and not just his, many, many others. It's the banks getting political. We need to fine them. Every time they do this, they need to be fined millions. And every single customer they debank for political reasons, millions. A fine, £10 million a time. There you go. Banks can afford it. £10 million fine goes into the country's coffers. Oh, pay for a few more nurses and doctors. Great, bang. Boom, boom, boom. They're debanking thousands of people. That's billions of pounds. We'll have that from the banks. Thanks very much. And let's see them then stop it. Apparently, a lot of them are. A lot of them have stopped it now because they've seen these two guys go and they've been told by the government that they mustn't do it. But, is that the government telling them not to do it because otherwise their plans for ultimate world domination will be delayed? Who knows? Anyway, he's also called for Howard Davis, the chair of the NatWest board, and the remaining members of the board to resign. Yes, the whole of NatWest needs to resign. The whole board. And people are closing. There's reports all over the media of people showing them, putting up account closed, account closed. People left, right and centre are closing their accounts in NatWest. And that is an absolutely wonderful thing to see. It's got to the point where there are tens of thousands of people now have closed their account with NatWest. That will impact NatWest's profits. Not a lot, but enough. It'll be enough. And it'll be enough to drop their share price a little bit further. The resignation come firing of Dame Allison has been reported to have been at the urging of the government. And while it's not usually in the government's gift to hire and fire the leadership of major banks, the UK is the majority shareholder of NatWest. Therefore, they have that right. And that includes Coutts, again, because they own Coutts. And after bailing it out to the tune of $45 billion during the 2008 financial crisis. And they must never, ever bail banks out again. If a bank fails in future, tough shit. Absolutely tough shit. It goes. And then, because it's gone, you put the directors, every director of that bank goes to jail for mismanagement of funds. And I mean 10 years. we start doing American. Bernie Madoff got, 97 years or something? That's what we need to start doing here. And when they see what the punishment is, let me tell you, they'll pick their game up. Anyway, this is bad news for Chairman of the Board, given that the Prime Minister was asked today whether he supported Davis staying in the post and refused to back the top banker. It is possible further resignations may therefore follow. The controversy around the bank's politicisation of personal finance and the consequences following that have had a major impact on its share price. NatWest Group's stock value have collapsed yesterday morning before falling further today. The tumble has wiped out billions, in fact, now, off the bank's value. Well done, Nigel, I say. It's one of the things that you can sit there and go, actually, he's done all right on that one. Nigel Farage first revealed that he was being subjected to a campaign of debanking last month, saying his present provider was severing ties without offering an explanation why, and that every other bank he'd approached, 10 in all, also refused to allow him to open personal and business accounts. Farage surmised that this was a political move against him, and although briefings in the press against him by his own bank, Coutts, claimed the real reason was financial, that has now been proved to be a lie. He claimed it. They were saying he was too poor to bank with them, and it was later comprehensively proven the real reason was indeed political, and in fact they admitted it in the end. Farage was able to use the subject access request legal mechanism to force the bank to surrender the documents it held on Farage, which showed Farage had been declared a persona non grata for Brexit, his friendship with President Trump, and even his retweeting of a joke by comedian Ricky Gervais. So they are monitoring people, looking at their social life, looking at their social posts, seeing what their political persuasions are, and going, no, we don't. He don't agree with what we want him to think. He's not thinking how we want him to think. Debanked. It destroys people's lives. Some claims against him were quite personal, including calling him a xenophobic racist and a disingenuous grifter. Farage has decried them as being shocking and vitriolic, and he has received an apology. And that apology indicates that they were wrong, that they were breaking the law, and that he has completely now the right to sue them. And I hope Nigel does. I'm going to be honest, I'm on his side for this one, because the banks are all bastards. There's not one bank that is anything other than filled with greedy, manipulative, power-hungry bastards. So if we can bring one down, if we can bring NatWest down, we all pull our money from NatWest. They go, and that's their own fault. I'll stop there and come up. I think if we could force NatWest to drop, I think it would be sending a message to every other bank. And I know I've mentioned this before. Some people say, oh, but think of the people working there. It's not their fault. Yeah, I agree. But here's the thing. We're already major shareholders in it. So if everybody in this country was to pull their money out of NatWest, and its share price would drop through the floor, the government could then step in, buy those shares for next to nothing, and own the bank. And then just turn it around and say, right, it is now a nationalised bank. It's open to everyone. No one will ever have their account closed for their political views. And it is the most solidly backed bank in the world because it's banked by the British government. And they just run it as a national bank for British citizens. And just leave it there. It doesn't have to do anything other than the basics. Money in, money out, overdrafts, direct debits, standing orders, basic stuff. Doesn't have to get involved in international banking or anything like that. And, of course, being a British national bank, they can keep branches open because effectively everyone working in there will be a civil servant. It's a very easy way to do it. And that way, the other banks will see that that's what's going to happen to them if they dick around. And we, the people, have the power to do that. And the next bank knows if they screw up and do anything like that, everyone in the country just goes, right, pulling my money out and putting it somewhere else. And they have a run on that bank. And at that time, that bank isn't owned by the British people. That bank just goes to the wall. And then you jail the board. It concentrates the mind wonderfully when these people see what could happen to them. They'll soon change their tune. They have to realise that we have the power. I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see in here on the channel, please do hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and monitor your bank. Don't let them monitor you. Bye.